Okay, good evening, everybody. We'll let the coaches come on in and join us. As everybody's getting settled in, how's everybody doing?
Pretty good.
Real well.
Right on. Well, welcome everyone to another episode of the Coach's Corner. This is a special series that we're going to be doing for the next couple of months. We're going to be doing a monthly video review series for some videos that were submitted through the Coach's Corner Facebook group. And we got a couple of fighters that we managed to get the scheduling down right for these guys to be able to go through some stuff. Tonight we have our very special guest, Duchess Sir Helga from the West Kingdom, who is one of the, as I said on previous episode, one of the best analysts that I know. So we're happy to have her input, and that's me touching her toe beans. But it's not her show, so I don't have to drink when I say toe beans. We'll save that for Friday. Also joining us, we have our two newest coaches that are joining us, Sir Masadi's from West Kingdom, from Ontier, and Duke Thorfinn from the West Kingdom, who was with us the first one we did last month. Tonight, the videos that we have His Lordship Finnan from the East Kingdom, and we have Lord Primus from Artemisia, who have both submitted some videos for us that we're going to be going over. And as we do this, our intent is to give them some concrete steps that they can take to make themselves better fighters, even during the pandemic years. I'm going to hand this off to Araya to do a quick introduction to Helga.
Hi, I'm Helga, otherwise known as Araya. I'm in the West Kingdom. I've been fighting off and on for close to 10 years now. I have been knighted the whole of 2 years, and I'm an obsessive compulsive video analyst.
Right on. Octa?
Hey, I'm Masadi's on tier. I've been fighting since 1989, so a little while now. Started out right-handed, had to switch to left-handed, so I get a little perspective there. I love video. I love analyzing body mechanics.
Right on. And Thorfinn?
I'm Jarl Thorfinn, West Kingdom. I've been fighting for about 30 years as well, and knighted for almost 26 now. But I've always used video analysis of my entire career, and so it's something that comes easy.
Thank you so much for
your guidance. So looking forward to helping out how I can.
I guess up next.
I've got some background noise. Finnan, out there in the East Kingdom, would you like to give a brief introduction about how long you've been fighting and what we're doing for you?
Sure. Yeah. So I'm Finnan. I've been fighting. I've been fighting for about 8 years. More of the time, if I'm at a fighter practice, I've got a rapier in my hand. But I've taken the time of the pandemic to go. What I really actually want to be doing is I want to fight, right? So I've been doing all the pel work. I'm a reaper. George and I, Thorvald and I, play as much as we can. And so we shot some video, hoping to get some tips. And we're both relatively green, you know.
That's all right. We can give you a plan. And Primus, give us a brief introduction about your fighting experience so far.
There we go.
As soon as you can unmute yourself,
yeah,
right?
Got it.
Yeah.
Name's Primus. Been fighting since I believe it was 2009 up in Ontier. Moved to Artemisia. I think it was in 2015. So just been, hit and miss fighting for most of that time. Mostly sword and board. I've dabbled in a little bit of, two-handed weapons, but nothing major. But just looking for some direction, kind of up my game a little bit. That'd be great. So
yeah,
excited.
And just for reference, so we can kind of get back to them if necessary. Who are you squired to here? Where are you?
Yeah, I'm squired to Sir Michael the Tall out of Ontier.
Oh, outstanding.
Yeah.
He's a good one. And Finnan, are you squired as well?
Nope.
All right, perfect. But if there's anybody that you're working with on a regular basis, just let us know later, and we can get them some information as well. So before we get too deep into the analysis part here, I kind of wanted to go over just some caveats and disclaimers about what we're doing and our intent and how this is going to work. So if you have not already seen the first video that we did on this a month ago, sorry, I'm trying to find. There you go. We'll put it on me then. So if you haven't seen the first video that we did on this last month, it was end of November. We actually did a video or an episode on how video analysis actually works. There is a process that we follow to break this down. We're not going to go too deep into that. So if you haven't already seen that, go back and watch that. I can probably post that in the comments as well, in the live feed, so people can have access to that. But that was kind of the instructional how we do this sort of thing. But part of that is when we're looking at video, we are using this to isolate deficiencies. Okay. This is what Helga and I refer to as ruthless self-assessment, right? The whole point of this is we learn more from our failures than we do our successes. Okay. We didn't call these unbelted fighters on the show here to tell them how horrible their fighting is and what awful people they are. That's totally not what this is. But we definitely are looking at this from a perspective. We isolate deficiencies, and that means we're going to be focusing on a point of failure, because that is the easiest place that we have for you to fix a thing, because it is identified as a failure. And it's important to understand in that context that when we say failure, this is not a character assault. We're not trying to be mean to anybody. Failure is meaningless, and it is incredibly valuable. It's just data. It's just information, right? But it's a launching point. It's a point that we can identify as some place to start to make things better for you. And so just kind of mostly wanted to throw that out for the people that are watching, so they don't think that we're just, calling you guys on to badger you about what terrible people you are. So let's see. Any other comments from the coaches before we turn this over to, yes, to Helga.
One thing I'm just going to comment on, that it's already coming up in the comments about people fighting during the pandemic. Many of these videos are actually older videos. You are welcome to submit your older videos. Nobody is breaking pandemic quarantine to send us stuff. So cut that out right now.
Right. And the video that we have for Finnan and Thorvald, they are in a bubble. They are quarantined together. So they can be doing this. So yeah, these are either old videos or people that are following pandemic procedures to stay safe, which is incredibly important to us. We are not encouraging people to not be safe by doing this. So good point. All right, Helga, you want to bring up the YouTubes? All right, so the first set we have here is Finnan, who's in the brown on the left side of the screen, and Thorvald, who will be who's on the right side. So yeah, just go ahead and let it play.
Hang on one moment. It just hid the play button on me. So there we go. Got it. So.
So one of the things we're looking for here, ideally, is we're going to be looking for a point at which somebody makes impact and a blow is recognized. But right now, there's also a lot of you dancing around each other. I can't tell if we had something there.
Yeah, I was looking at the same.
Yeah, we think that was a leg shot, we think.
Okay.
You want me to keep going?
Yeah, keep going.
Okay.
Is that the light?
Yeah, I think that was a light one.
Okay. So
That was
looked like that was a leg shot, but it was kind of. Do you want to go over that, Helga?
Yeah, I mean, there's actually a ton of stuff here even before we get to impact. So one of the things I want to start with
I
is
agree. So I mean, honestly, I've got what I need.
yeah, same here
yeah,
actually. Do you want me
yeah.
to drop out a screen share?
Yeah, you can stop the screen share.
Okay. So stopping screen share for right now. So one of the things that I'm going to bring up right now is that both of these fighters are relatively new in their career as sword and board fighters, and that is incredibly obvious in this. And so I'm going to focus on big picture versus little minute things, because I don't think little minute things are actually going to help any of these fighters at this moment in time.
Right.
And so one of the first things that I would look at is neither of these fighters actually have anything connected in their body. They're actually fighting from about what I would consider about just right above the nipple up. Everything, all their sword motion, all their shield motion. And as they approach the fight, one of the biggest tells in that is all their tools are leading in and out of range, and they are fighting at the edge of their shield. So they're not actually trying to hit each other, they're trying to hit each other's shields. And this says that there's no body mechanics or power generation going on, because they actually can't get past that plane. Everything is accidental right now. This is the learning phase. This is very much so just learning how to move their bodies and move a stick and a sword, or a stick and a shield within this confine of this newer fighting. And so what I'd really say is right now both these fighters need to go back to learning how to generate power from their heels up through their body, and then readdress the fight. And so one of the ways of dealing with this is actually sitting down in the fight a little bit more, because both of them, you can see as they come up, they both get taller, which means they're locking their body out more and more as they come together, and they throw a couple shots, and then they go back down into, like, as they back away, they actually relax their bodies. That's the first huge thing that I saw.
Oh, I think you're muted, John.
I am. Octa, if you're ready, go ahead.
I was just to build on what Helga had said. I noticed a lot of posture changes, especially with Finnan. A lot of times when he's not aggressing, when he starts to aggress, I see him sort of settle into a kind of upright posture, but oftentimes his shoulders are back, like he's leaving the fight. And since all the power is being generated from the sternum up, when the shoulders are back, there's a lot of stuff that just is lost from that slight bit of posture there. So when you're practicing power generation, practicing at that with that upright posture, and perhaps a more, I would say, not necessarily beginner level, but a much more solid sword foundation, maybe on the shoulder or fully into a high guard. But there's a lot of shots that we can talk about later as far as openings that from a shoulder position started with a sword with just a basic mechanic would change the whole fight dynamic.
Thorfinn?
Okay, so definitely I've noticed both fighters are not moving really on the balls of their feet.
All the time to me, and it's why I people why you're singing by accident.
flat foot stepping, and they're not building from the ground up in their power. There's a lot of kind of like you said, high posturing attack. I would like to address at some point both guys in their shield stances. And I think that because there's two different styles of shields, and what we're seeing is both styles have some things they could do to improve their effectiveness in that style of shield. And so when we come back to that, or if you want to do it now, we can do it now, but whatever you guys want to do.
All right, go ahead. If you got some thoughts on that, go ahead with that right now.
Okay, so first off, I'll start with Finnan. Finnan, you're using a kite shield, right?
Mm.
Kite. That shield looks to me, if I had to guess, I think that the actual cup is a little high on it, and which doesn't give you much room at the top for failure. And this type of shield is a linear type of shield. Okay, so when you hold it, it has to be up and down. The arrows are up and down, right? And so what you're doing is anytime you change your hand position, it moves that tail drastically. A half inch in your hand is many inches off the bottom, removing the best defense mechanism of this shield is the bottom, right? So you need to keep it always straight up and down with your opponent. There is, of course, some fudges like with left-handed fighters. You tilt a little bit and things like that. But what I'm saying is that having it looks like it bounces around a lot. You're doing a lot of bouncing with it, and that's causing your shield to not be in the right place. Okay, so that's something to think about while you're doing your Pell work. I want you to try and think about making sure that your shield is always facing your opponent, right? And no matter how you move, it's always right there for you. Okay. Now, Thorvald, you're doing a heater, and that looks like a side strapped heater, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So what you're doing is you're doing a lot of flat hanging of that shield, right? And I don't know how your orientation of your straps are. That'll change how you get to the whole point of that shield is you're looking over the corner, right? And what you're doing is you're doing kind of a slight punch block with a duck for the top. The bottom is going to be kind of a rotation where you drop the elbows down and kind of crouch into to block the legs. So yours is kind of flat and kind of tilted out like this. And you're approaching your opponent with your sword forward like this. So you have a large gap here in this section here. By closing that door and looking over that corner, it's going to allow you to actually protect yourself and allow you to be able to fire offensively. Okay. And all stuff you can do with the Pell. I highly recommend when you're doing your Pell work to at least hold something in the position you would your shield, so that way you can get body mechanics locked in with muscle memory. Okay. And this is all like, things we're all working on. So okay, that's my general thing right there. And Helga, you or someone else take over.
Yeah, Helga.
So I'm actually just going to go off the recommendation. So all of us are saying roughly the same thing. Like, hey, body mechanics are not here. Where it actually start with fixing this is actually at the Pell. I'm gonna mirror Thorfinn on this one. Is right now, fighting is going to kind of be experimental fun for what you're learning basics wise. And so what I would recommend for both of you guys right now is it's time to go back to the Pell and take video of yourself at the Pell. We can become very lazy very, very quickly when we can just be strong and throw our upper body at the Pell and we feel like we're training because we're hitting the Pell. Now is the time to actually go back to learning how to drive from your foot to your hand, learning how to properly connect your body through your core, through your hips, and through your quads. And get yourself tired doing it so you know which muscles are actually firing, because then when you're fighting, you will now gain that memory of how your body works and get yourself back into the position. And so realistically right now, what I think both of you guys can benefit from is taking video at the Pell and then sending it to us, because I think you're going to get a better foundation out of all of this than any fighting video you can send us, and it's going to correct so many of the problems that are currently being presented. And so that would be my recommendation after watching this.
Cool. Okay. Yeah.
Right. And to kind of piggyback on what Thorfinn was talking about with the different shield types, what he's talking about with the heater in particular is what I refer to as body blocking, where essentially I'm going to put my shield in position and I'm going to rotate my body to catch the block so that I'm not chasing after all of the blows that are coming in. And as I rotate my body, that also creates complementary motion, where when I rotate to my left to block something coming shield side for me, that is generating motion in my sword, right? It's complementary motion where you're already you're already in the process of starting a shot, right? Just by doing the block, right? So I refer to it as body blocking. And the other thing he was talking about with the center grip, I think it's easier to learn body blocking with a strapped shield because it's on you and you can just turn your body to catch the blocks. But that body blocking is exactly what he was talking about with the center grip as well, where if you're holding your center grip here, part of the thing about the center grip is you keep the shield in a position and you move your body around it. And that is both offensively and defensively, because by putting your shield, you get your shield in your opponent's face, you can move around to this side of it and have targeting on the other side. And that's something else you can get from body blocking. The other thing I'll say is that what you're doing there is often a disconnect between what we do at the Pell and what happens in fighting. You're going to have to bridge that disconnect, and basically it's that, and you do that as everybody has pretty much said, with footwork. You use your footwork to put yourself in position to have access to targets. Then you execute you have to think of it as if you were executing just basic textbook Pell work mechanics, right? Which also means, to Helga's point, if the mechanics you're doing on the Pell are deficient, that's going to be a problem. So it would definitely help for us to see what you're doing at the Pell to determine if you have good mechanics and you're just not making that connection, or if they're bad mechanics to start with. Does that make sense? Right? Thorfinn, you had something else?
One of the things I want to say about especially center grip style shields is instead of like a mounted shield, which is more of a zone defense, these are cone defenses. Right. So a lot of times as the shield comes away from your body, right, the cone actually becomes bigger. Same thing with like a hockey goalie when he comes out of the net to cover the net. It seems like that wouldn't work, but really they're spatially covering more area, right, by the angles. So while you want to have your center grip shield, and I fought round and kite shield, as kind of away from your body, right? If it's close to your body, that cone is very small and has very low, failure acceptance, right? Because you can't have anything that goes wrong. But if you have a little bit of space, what it does is it creates a little bit of the maybe more cushion, if you want to call it something like that, for maybe slightly missed block or to recover from a missed block. So that's something to think about. And I'm saying that I have fought successfully with both side strap as well as center grip, and they're both very effective. It's just that you just have to learn the fundamentals of each one.
Yep. Okay.
Oh, and just two things on the shield aspect. I fight with a center grip scutum. I fought with a center grip round. I'm very much a believer in the edges. My scutum's 17 inches this way, and it's only 3/4 of an inch this way. So if I'm flat, my opponent only has to beat 3/4 of an inch. If I take the edge out, now they got to beat 8 inches. And to Thorfinn's point, if I now bring that out away from my body, now I've got that, I'm controlling that range, and I get to control some timing with that. The other thing, Finn, and I noticed your shield seems to get moved rather easily. Is it aluminum or plastic? It seems like it's very light.
It's plastic. It is super light. So
I would maybe, especially for training, maybe up it to a wooden shield, something a little bit heavier, so where it can help you absorb some of the impact. Plus, it'll make up for a little bit of technique and strengthen you.
Sure.
And if you switch back to the lighter shield with a better technique, it may or may not serve you, but a little bit of
when you go to a wooden shield, you'll never go back though.
Exactly. Yeah. All right.
Oh no.
So yeah, there's a lot going on there. One of the other things that I noticed with where both of you are at is both of you are definitely afraid of being struck by the other. There's neither of you are allowing engagement at all. Anytime there's any kind of motion towards, you're just kind of backing out. So my suggestion for that, because again, this is a very common problem where people are going to just back away and they back away in a straight line. And I know that there's only so much room for you to work with there, but typically when people back away from their opponent, they do it in a straight line, and that's generally just a bad idea, right? So what you want to do is you want to make a box for yourself, and a box that is say 10 feet by 10 feet, or a 9-foot spear by 9-foot spear, right? That is enough room for you and your opponent to stand in either corner of that box with your arms fully stretched out with your sword, and you will barely be able to touch your opponent's sword, right? That is enough room for you to be disengaged from your opponent, right? But learning to fight in that box and learning to fight in a controlled, in a confined space gives you a better sense of approaching your opponent, right? When you decide you're going to engage the fight, it gives you a better sense of how to do that. It also gives you a sense of when your opponent comes directly at you, how are you going to get away from that if you only have one step back that you can take, right? We think about evading a fight as in just going straight back, but evading just means don't be there when the shot comes in, right? We can evade forward. We can evade through on a 45-degree angle with your opponent. You can do a J step out to get away from them on something that is not a straight back angle. Does that make sense? And setting up a box of 9-foot spears will help you figure out how to navigate that. And if you step out the box, you lose. Helga?
Okay, so we don't have to detrain a behavior later. I have something to add on to His Grace's feedback on that. Start outside of the box. When you step into the box, you are in measure and the fight is on, even if you can't reach your opponent. If you start the fight relaxed inside that box, you are going to be training yourself for a weird failure where you are already in range and your opponent's ready to go. So that is a step that you must include with this training methodology. Is outside of the box, you are out of measure. Once you are in the box, you must treat yourself as in measure at all times. Otherwise, it will be a very, very bad habit to break later in your fighting career.
That's a great point. And really what that gets to is intent, right? And being able to do that, being able to start your fight outside the box, when you decide that you're ready to engage the fight, you are crossing the Rubicon, right? You have a line that you see that you are crossing that says, I am prepared to engage combat. Right. And so, yeah, that absolutely trains in that mindset as well, because eventually you get into tournament, there's going to come that point where you have to say it's go time. And doing that, like she's just talking about, stepping outside that box, and it gives you, it trains you to find your mindset for, where do I need to be to know that I'm engaged in the fight. Right. Thorfinn, you had something on that?
Slightly different. I'm just kind of running through my head the fight. Question for Thorvald: are you committed to this style of shooting?
I like it a lot in the sense that I've done it the most out of all the other types of shields that I've tried. It feels a little more comfortable to me, and I feel like I should probably capitalize on that aspect and just make it more comfortable for me.
Right. Okay.
So, yeah, I believe they answer the question that I'm committed to that style.
Okay. Yeah. Absolutely. Okay. So that just checking in, because I'm going to be doing some. We're going to give you some feedback, and I would like to be able to address that for you.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. We're gonna let Octa do one more thing for you, and then we're probably gonna move on, because you got a lot of information here.
So another thing that we noticed is you guys are very square to one another. You both are standing directly in the box, and seem to be working on more hitting than dancing with your opponent. So addressing the danger. The sword's what's going to kill you. So setting up your stance so you are presenting your best defense, offense to your opponent's danger, and moving with that, not just connected from that. And so you guys have a lovely thing. You guys get to practice with one another. So I would even suggest out of armor, put a helmet on, grab your shield, your gauntlets, and when you're doing Pell work, square off, work on your different stances from a bladed stance to a front stance, and then take turns. And I wouldn't say this in a fight, but one person gets to throw a blow to an opening. That person that's now getting hit, but not really getting hit, moves to a block and throws a blow. And you guys trade back and forth, maneuvering one another and getting a feel using good technique, because you're not worried about getting hit. You're not worried about hitting the person before the opening goes away. And just a very nice, easy practice structure to develop some awareness and some understanding of where your tools are working and where they're not working.
All right. So now that we've given you way more information than you can process in one setting, well, let's we're going to break this down to 3 concrete things that you can do, and we'll see if we can find some sort of consensus. And I suspect stick work is going to be among them. But Thorfinn, let's have you go. What are the 3 things that they should focus on?
Okay, so Finnan, I think that we talked about your shield form, and I think that if you were especially at the Pell, and this is going to actually be for both of you, to establish what I'm going to call like fundamental a shield stance, and learn that shield stance, so that way no matter where you go, right, you're allowing yourself to defend yourself while being able to attack, right? And so this is all things that we learn base level. And this is when I talk about fundamental skills, I'm talking about the foundation of the house that everything else is built on, right? Okay, so that includes staying on the balls of your feet, and allowing yourself to use your core muscles in your center to generate power. This power is going to come from the ground. When you hear all these fighters talk about this idea of toes up, what they're literally talking about is that having yourself being able to move, you can transfer the power up from your feet, literally from the earth, to your hips, to your core, to your shoulder, and out to your hand, right? And so you do this through practice of making sure that you're mobile, right? You can move all the time. And then the other thing is that we both you guys need to work on proper shields, like stance, and learning how that shield style works. Other than that, I think that those are my, I think I said 4 things, but anyway, and you guys are doing great. And I wanted to say thank you for allowing us to have the opportunity to analyze your videos. I know it's sounds like we're just, tearing India, but at the same time, we're doing it out of love and care. Okay.
Yeah, no, we totally appreciate it too. So don't feel like you're hurting our
I was there to work with you is what I'm saying.
Yeah. So he's talking about shield position, learning how to use your shields, and stick mechanics, which goes with the footwork, being able to connect the footwork to the stick mechanics. Yeah. So Helga?
I have a feeling all of us are going to say this. Power generation, start power generation in Pell. I'm going to tell you to go look up how Bruce Lee wrote about the 1-inch punch. And how he talks about his body mechanics. It's an incredibly good breakdown of how he physically managed to master that, and it's applicable to what we do. I will also tell you, please take video of yourself on the Pell. Send it to us. I'll do a little write-up or I'll chat with you. I'm happy to do so, because I think that's going to be the main focus. I think all of your other problems right now in fighting are actually overshadowed by the fact that we need to get you making good power so you can then go down the road to all the other secondary issues that were brought up tonight. So I'm going to say power generation, and power generation. Those are the 3 things, and I won't focus on anything else until we start seeing that, because I think it'll be overwhelming.
Yep. Okay. All right, Octay.
And with power generation, I just want to emphasize posture. I think posture is really important, and the subtleties of posture can change the whole game. Like I mentioned earlier, if you watch some of those exchanges where your shoulders get back, where you're I think that It could be from previous training and such, but just subtle changes in posture can you be doing everything else right, but that will mess you up. It'll mess with your defense, with your shield work, and your stick mechanics. So try and take a look at that. And if you guys are working together, call each other on it. If you see somebody not stacked from your heels all the way up through, like there's a pole that runs from the top of your head straight down, that you need to start. And just like the Matrix, right? Once you understand the rules, you can bend them and break them. But starting with a good foundation, you can't cheat something if you're not doing it deliberately. A lot of people are doing weird things with their body and it's not deliberate, so it messes with the rest of your flow.
No form from form. Finn, one question I forgot to ask earlier. When you're doing pel work, where is your sword starting from?
Yeah. So
Are you firing?
I
Are you firing from the shoulder, or are you firing from out here?
Well, I mean, it varies. It kind of it started when I started. Like some of the local people were like, we're the East, so we're all A-frame fighters. You have your sword up here. This is where you need to have it. And I'm like, well, but I was watching Sean's video and he wants the sword back here. So I've got a little bit of conflicting stuff. So I've been working on both of those things. And since we shot the video, because I watched my arm never return,
Right.
I have really spent a little bit more time at the pel, like making sure that I'm bringing that sword all the way back.
Well, so when you're
shot.
doing the big thing about doing pel work is wherever you're generating your mechanics from has to be consistent.
Yeah.
And the reason I asked that question is because if you're doing pel work off of your shoulder and then you're fighting in an A-frame, that is not
Right.
the same thing that you're doing in the pel work. And your body, you're asking your body to do something that it's not been trained to do. So that's why I asked that question specifically. I think the mechanics coming from the shoulder, if you understand the mechanics coming from the shoulder, it makes more sense to then come forward a little bit into the A-frame. I think some of the A-frame mechanics are a little bit can be a little harder to digest at a newer level. So I recommend doing your pel work from your shoulder, and when you're fighting for probably the next 6 months or so, make sure you're fighting from your shoulder, right? Make sure you're firing your shots from the same place that you're doing them on the pel work. But definitely when you're doing your pel work, definitely do one or the other.
Okay.
Right. Don't try to mix up because everybody's talking about very basic fundamental mechanics, and your body is still learning what those mechanics are for you. Right. And that's consistency. So whatever you're doing, do it the same. And if you want to do the mechanics that I'm doing, tell people that that's what you're doing.
Sure.
Most people will be okay with that. most of the guys I know in the East would be okay with that. So Thorfinn had something, and then Ryan, and then we're going to move on to Primus.
All right, Thorvald, you look like you're a pretty strong guy, and right?
Ish.
he is. He's also modest.
So what I'm seeing is that you're doing a technique that I find happens with strong guys, is that you've got a lot of stuff out here in front, and you're not really you're expecting like the ability to just drop it in, or this kind of short movement is going to create this power. What you can do is actually, if you're very strong, you can actually pull some of your strength out and use it for speed and accuracy, right? And that's through training. You do this instead of just having to hit hard, like hit hard, right? You can then take some of that, like 20% off, and have that just become accuracy, right? And so there's something to think about, is that you have the natural ability to be strong. That's great. But what you want to do is you want to tone back some of that and really focus on making sure that you hit right, and you hit with so when your arm's way out front like this, if you don't use proper technique, it's going to cause undue stress on your joints, as well as steal speed and accuracy, right? And so what you want to do is you want to use some of your natural strength as a kind of a background, and then have the focus on delivery. How do I deliver the blow correctly, right? And there's techniques you can do for this that will change, what I call them, like small circle, using different type of fulcrums in your movement to allow you to do that, instead of just being I'm strong and I hit hard, right? Because that's not really going to win you the fight. It's accuracy and speed are going to win you the fight. Strength is going to be something that you can add on to those two things, right?
You will always have strength.
Yeah, that's your back whip. That's your always, you got a battery of that, right? So that's a really good quality to have, but don't rely on that as a victory element.
Yep.
Because the fast guy and the accurate guy is going to beat you every time.
Yep.
Okay.
Totally.
And so, but other than that, I think, I mean, you guys are both doing good. So,
yeah. All right, Helga.
So this isn't actually about your guys' fights at all. This is about a little bit about the breakdowns that are going on. Tuning into this show, you're going to run into multiple lexicons and various generational lexicons about fighting. So one of the things that got pointed out is that we're using power generation and mechanics kind of interchangeably. There's going to be a couple terms that we all run into like that. And so I'm just going to say in the comments, if there's something that you want to bring up or there's a question about some of the terms we're using, please post those. We're happy to talk about them. We're happy to address some of them because we're going to continue to run into this, especially as we have different knights come on and do breakdowns with us, because that's one of the cool things about the SCA is we talk about the same sport in many different ways. And so if there's something that you hang up on, please do. All the coaches or all the fighters and knights here that are doing the breakdowns will attempt to not have power gen and mechanics run over the top of each other. It was just something that I wanted to address real quick. Like, just ask in the comments. We're happy to tackle those things.
Yep. Right on. Okay. Well, thanks guys for enduring that. And now that Primus has seen how awful this is going to be, this is a chance where we give him a chance to bail on this right now, right? All right. You ready?
I'm pulling up his video right now. So give me 1 second.
All right.
Is that the blue pill or the red pill?
That's right.
Run now. Run now.
That's right. Can't say he doesn't know at this point. And while she's pulling that up, definitely want to appreciate everybody, the comments in the Facebook feed there. Lots of good stuff in there. You guys are seeing this very similarly to what we're seeing. So some good stuff out there. I definitely recommend Finn, Thorvald, and Primus go back and look at the comments later, and you'll see some stuff. And if there's a comment you don't understand, I'm sure whoever posted up there would be happy to address it for you.
All right, I think I've got it pulled up right. So Primus, if I am pulling the wrong timestamps, just tell me, because I made a little printout and highlighted them. We'll see how well that works.
Sounds good.
All right. Okay, should have that up on the timestamp of right before 7:58 on video 5 for those following at home.
I haven't published those for the folks at home there. So
Primus, which one are you?
The one in the blue.
Okay.
And this is November last year, right? November 2019.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. Who are you fighting here?
Oh gosh. Actually, I'm not sure.
That's fine.
Yeah, they're
guy in red.
The guy in red. Yep. Got
yeah,
it.
fighting that guy.
Red versus blue. I'm always for blue.
Hey now. I see how it is.
Okay, first blow struck.
There you go.
I was going to back that up just a little bit.
Okay.
Oh god, this video is so long that I backed it way up. Sorry, guys.
Okay, you know about the hotkeys, right?
No, you didn't teach me this shit before we started.
My bad. So if you do the letter J, that will back you up 10 seconds.
Oh, score. Now I know. We just get to watch the video a second time this time.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. So ideally, we'd be looking for a video where Primus gets struck, but we'll work with this.
Yeah. Do you want me to continue going until he gets struck?
Is Primus, do you know if there's a timestamp that will give us a greater likelihood of you getting killed?
You know, I'm not sure on this video.
Right.
I know there were a few in there for sure.
All right. Keep going. See what we can find.
Okay, hang on one second. We're gonna start playing with this then.
But one thing I am noticing though, almost every time you throw a blow with this opponent, you're ducking your face into your shield
Okay.
and blinding yourself.
Mm-hmm.
There you go. Oh, is this this is Fenris, right?
Yeah.
All right. This should be a good one.
Oh, I pulled the axe out on this one.
Yeah.
I'm gonna keep going past that one since it was off screen.
Yep, that's fine. So it looks like there was a body wrap and then a headshot.
Yeah. You want me to back it up to 10 seconds and slow it down?
Yeah. So to slow down with the hotkeys, you can do shift and then the arrow key. Is that right?
Shift the arrow key. That's freaking awesome.
No, the arrow that's above the comma. That will give you.
Okay, you and I are doing lessons after this if I'm going to keep driving this bus. But
I'll show you. Yeah, I'll show you. In fact, I will.
Run half speed.
There you go. Yep, that'll work. In fact, somebody else probably already put it up. Yep, Saib has put up the the YouTube keyboard shortcuts up in the live chat. Thank you, Saib.
You're awesome. All right, so I've got a couple questions out the gate. So you ready for this? So which one of those was the good shot? Do you have any recollection?
I believe it was the wrap because he hit me and I think I dropped my shield and then he hit me in the head.
Yeah, hit you in the head and then hit you in the body again. Okay, I wanted to double check.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was the wrap to the ribs. Yeah.
Okay. Sean, you want to go after this one?
We'll let you guys go, but yeah, you go first.
All right.
That's why we hired you.
That's why, man, I want double pay for this. I got to run the videos and now I've got to go first.
I will totally double
pressure.
your salary.
Okay, so there's a couple things. I'm going to stop the video share so you guys get the big screen for a minute. We can come back to this. So there's a couple things right out the gate that I'm seeing in your fighting. One, you have a giant tell. You are timing yourself out. You see that bob behind you every time. And when you go to throw, you stop, then you load, then you throw. Okay. Every time. Doesn't matter if you're standing or legged, that bob is there. You want to know how many times I've been yelled at about that bob? A lot. So this typically speaks to actually a really wound up mental headspace. At least it did for me. And kind of watching your video, you have a very interesting tell. You blow into range. And so you hit the edge of measure and then you are like in their shorts. There is no progression in your fight right now about controlling it. From even fighting the new fighter to fighting a more experienced fighter that's giving you a better threat, you're presenting that same shortening of range and trying to control the fight like right out the gate. And if you're in their shorts, you are now actually slowing down your stick speed and looking. And this speaks to an insecurity within your own defense of the fight. You feel close, you feel tight, you feel like you can defend, and then maybe throw something on going out or into the fight, and that's it. But you're actually locking and stopping your fight to feel comfortable and safe. Okay. And so my big thing in this one is going to be actually getting you out of your comfort zone and slowed down and looking at your opponent. Because being wound like this, and because you presented the same fight with both the new fighter and the more experienced fighter, you didn't actually address them at all, which means you're not seeing your opponent yet. You're only coming into that fight with your tools and you're going to throw the bucket at them and see what sticks. You're not adapting at all. You have these fights pre-written. Like it is a run program that you load and then it goes and it works or it doesn't. So that's all the harsh criticism. The thing that I'm going to point out that I like so far is you actually have a relatively steady and consistent recovery of your stick, even though it turns into your tell. You're not breaking the 90-degree rule, which is where you change the direction of your stick after your elbow has broken 90 degrees. This is actually how you break your elbow, by the way. Ask me how I know.
Oh.
I'm the bad habit knight, by the way. Like I'm super bad habits. And so I wanted to out the gate say that even with that like huge amount of harsh coming in there, you have some of the tools that have allowed you to be successful with this. And so now you're entering a really hard phase in your fight where you're going to have to deprogram some stuff to start making forward motion. And most of that is in your head.
Okay.
All right. Octa, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I see these moments, and it's probably when you're closing where your tempo changes, where you go from being kind of, my analogy is a monotone fighter to a stereo fighter, somebody that's tempo never changes and it's kind of this monotone. I see that a lot out at range. And then every once in a while in these videos, I see your tempo adjust and speed up and slow down. If you can find a way to tap into that passion part of the fight, and like, I think what Helga referred to, when you're actually fighting your opponent and you're starting to feed off of what they're giving you, it allows you to go from that monotone tempo to more of that stereo fight. If that makes sense. It's kind of a judgment that I use when I'm seeing fighters. You can hear or catch out of your peripheral when you're walking by a field and somebody's fighting in stereo, and it's just a whole different level. And I think I can see that in you, and it gets me excited, and I want to see more of that. The other thing I really notice from each fight is how the amount of time that you're hiding your eyes behind your shield. And that's a thing I look for because I spent half of my career hiding behind my round shield. Yeah. And when you just own it and you take it in the teeth and you watch it come all the way in and you learn how to be very visual all the time, your eyes are always in the fight, then there can be times when you might get blinded. But 90% of the time, your eyes are in the fight. So you're accepting how that fight's going and you're picking up when and where you really lost it. That wrap to the body, you couldn't see the body mechanic anymore. And your shield got pressed in and you were compressed fighting up close. So all that person had to do was release tension, gain a bit of range with their body mechanic, and throw to the opening. When you were in close like that, instead of being blinded behind your equipment, since you're already close, drive that big school bus. Get out there if you like to be in close and own the range. I like to get out there and I'm a big wet blanket, get over all their stuff and frustrate them. But I can see everything at that point because there's nothing in my way. So kind of like that, when you keep your eyes in the fight, I think your fighting will change exponentially.
Okay.
Hey, Octa, we recently had a comment in the Facebook Live there about the short bus. So I'm glad you brought up the big bus. So
as long as you're driving.
Okay. First off, why did you switch to the axe?
It's just something I've always wanted to play around with. I'm not good with it, as you can see. So I think I've fought with it 3 or 4 times before that fight. So I mean, it's just something I've seen people use, and I just I want to give it a go. But I'm
going to tell you, I don't see a lot of successful tournament fighters actually use an axe.
Okay.
And it's not that the weapon isn't a very valuable weapon. It's great in the battlefield. But in particular, in tournament fighting, what you've done is you've taken a, say, 30-inch weapon and reduced the blade to only 6 inches at the end.
Yeah.
And which allows you to have, I mean, unless you are just spot on with your, that last 6 inches, you've taken away all of your offense. So I would say until we build a really solid set of skills, like the foundations there, let's maybe focus on more sword, right? Because it has more blade, it has a back blade and a point. If you want to put a point on it, gives you more options to kind of learn right now. What we were talking about, the guys were talking a little bit about this kind of transition, is that you like to start off at 3. I don't know how you want to describe it, ABC or 1, 2, 3, but whatever, A and 1 are always closest, and the other numbers are the other ones, the farthest, right? And so 3, you go from like 3 and you kind of explode through 2, right, into 1, which seems to be your comfortable place. You want to be kind of in close. There's a lot of fighting that happens between 3 and 2 that can change just dynamically the fight, right? Footwork and range control is everything, right? You should be capable of fighting in all three ranges. But what it seems to do is that you are doing like a throwing away of the entire middle range. And like, you're like, I'm okay out here. I want to be at 1, right? And that's going to be good for guys that aren't capable of moving. But as soon as you start encountering fighters that have good footwork, you're going to be continuously lost. They'll be gone and hitting you before you can figure out how to get back to 1 again.
Yeah.
But so that being said, let's see, transition, blah, 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 zones. Okay. Yeah. I was wondering how Octomasades would address the your shield stance. It seemed to me to be a little bit, I don't fight with an oval very often. Does seem like it's going to be kind of a half kite shield, half round shield type of idea. And so I would like to hear him talk about your stance on the shield, because it seemed to me that there was a point where you, especially at the end, when the guy hit you with the body wrap and then into the head, right? And then maybe body wrap again, your shield froze in position and it just became stationary. You literally kind of moved around it, right? And then that's why he could hit you like that.
Okay.
You present, because your shield lost track of him. And it just became like a thing that was just, you were trying to like around now instead of actually using it incorporated into your fight. And I think what Octomasades meant when he was talking about kind of gritting your teeth and just being, bearing the whole thing, is not being afraid to have your shield out there and trust yourself to block those shots.
Okay.
Right. And so I think that's a real thing, but I throw that out to him. But other than that, that's where I'm coming from right now.
So, yeah, it's the difference between using a center grip as this big flat surface that you're controlling range with this way. Again, it comes down to the edge is only so thick. If I beat your edge, I beat you. Get a little more angle, use the edge to block. I know you don't have any corners. That's unfortunate. But use that edge. There's even on a round shield, there's the spots that are the weak points, depending on where that shield is in relation to you, and the spots that are the thicker. So when you're fighting an opponent, you've got to see corners where there aren't corners, if that makes sense. There's always that sweet spot with the angle based on the range and the tempo. So I like to create that edge. Then I can start manipulating my opponent with the edge of my shield and giving them just enough to feel like they might want something.
Yeah.
But you have it covered. And if you're starting out, not way out, but if you're in a comfortable position, you can always bring it in as they close and maneuver, and you can shut down angles. You can also step to an angle with your shields already there. So it gives you more time to react than when it's here. Basically, all you can do is just cover up. From here, I can roll that edge up a little bit and never have to really move my head, but allow it to skate off the edge as opposed to the flat. So I really love edge on blocking. Even when I'm using my buckler, I edge on block with my buckler. I like to attack my opponent more with my shield when their sword work with my shield. That is not my opponent.
Yeah. Hang on, Thorfinn. We're gonna get to the next segment here, next video here in just a second. So one of the things that I'm hearing from everybody, to me, this is the term I use for what you're doing is pre-programming, where you are, as like I said earlier, predetermining how the fight's going to go, right? You sit out at B or C range, or C or D range, and you decide what's going to happen, and then you launch that. And when you launch that fight, you are executing a predetermined set of responses that are not at all based on how your opponent is responding to what you're doing, right? You are throwing at shots that you expect to be in a certain location at a certain distance, right? But the moment you take the first step of that, your opponent is going to respond in some way to that first step. And if their response is to take a step back and to basically void the range that you just took, now you're throwing shots to targets that are just not there anymore, right? So it's pre-programming. It's and one of the things about pre-programming that fight, when you decide how things are going to go, you've made decisions and you're committed to those decisions, and you can't change those decisions, and you can't take live information as it is presented. Does that make sense? So when you take that step in, you are so fixated on gaining a certain physical distance that you actually create a blind spot in your fight where you can't see anything because you're so focused on just getting to a physical location and bridging that distance. Does that make sense? And so my advice on that on how to fix that is step number one, establish range. Establish range. Because when you take a step into range and your opponent chooses to take that range back, they are providing you information, right? And if you take another step, now you are in measured pursuit. You're not chasing after them. You are in measured pursuit, and you have your opponent on their heels. You have them on the defensive, and you have done this simply by taking a measured step into range. Just take one step and see what it gets you, right? And because that's going to provide you information. But the big thing that it does is it keeps you from being so emotionally vested in a particular outcome, right? You just take a step, and all you're doing is, that when you go from C range to B range, your opponent has to respond to that in some way. And when they do, they're providing you information. Then you process that information, and then you make a decision based on that information. Even if that information is that they threw a blow at you, that's still information, right? Helga?
All right, before we go on, this is going to be a fantastic time to drop victory conditions. You are at a stage in your fighting, victory conditions, trademark Sean, whatever we want to do that with. You're at a fantastic point in your fight that winning shouldn't actually be your victory condition at all. Like, winning's great. Winning is accidental to whatever you're actually working on right now, which will give you a headspace to go back into learning and training and focus on a singular item. So if we're going to pick one item to be not bum rushing through range, that turns into your victory condition. And it doesn't matter how many times you have to reset the fight or the stupid thing you lose to. You are literally working on, I am going to walk through the edge of measure and into B range, and then I'm going to attempt to fight in B range. And whatever else happens is literally a side effect of that choice. And so this is where I would say that I think in your training, you need to start looking at victory conditions versus like, oh, I hit them, so thus I was successful. Hitting them is no longer success. Throwing a specific thing or making a certain action is. And so that's where this will start making you look at your opponent. This actually forces you to look at your opponent in front of you, because now you're not data collecting, as Sean just said, which is the reason why I figured this would be a fantastic time to bring up this term, because I feel that you applying it right now is going to take your fight to the next level, because it's going to force you in to new behavior patterns and new data collection.
Yeah, because there's a lot of good, solid mechanics underneath what you're doing. You are shooting with pretty good solid power base under you. Your stick mechanics are pretty decent. So you've kind of got a little bit of the how. You're missing the why. Does that make sense?
Yep.
All right, so let's you got the next chunk of video up. You're still at half speed at this point.
Where's the butt wrap? I still want to see the butt wrap.
Yeah, he's still a little bit too deep a range to be able to hit that. Also, your stance right there is super wide. The forward to back range, the stance forward to back, super wide. Gonna go back and see him get hit in the leg. Yeah, Helga, you should be able to hit the letter J to get you back 10 seconds. Oh, yeah, that came right up under your shield.
Because as soon as you started the blow, you covered your head again.
Helps if I'm not muted when I ask you the question. Do you want to go over this one, or do you want to go to the next fight? Because there's some good stuff right here.
Yeah, let's look at this.
Okay.
I think Octa really kind of caught this. So as you were launching into your shot, everything went up.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, go ahead, Helga.
All right. Well, actually, I can just sit here and play this back. This is so I'm actually going to say there's some improvement we're seeing in this one. You're not bouncing your stick. You're nowhere near as wound as you were in the first video where we were looking at you fight. In this video, you can actually watch you're starting to like play with approach right until that happens. And I'm going to kill screen share real quick until you guys want it back on. But one of the things that we're seeing in this is where your approach is starting to develop a little bit, or you're not actually perceiving him as a threat you need to bum rush, or somebody that you can basically bully while fighting. And so this is somebody that's got a little bit of a threat, but not much to you. So your approach is actually better here than we watched beforehand. And I use bully very lightly, by the way. I realized I just used a dumb word for that. But when you can overwhelm your opponent, it makes it very easy to just get in their space and shove them around. And it's almost satisfying, especially as like in that mid-range unbelt where you're just like, haha, I can dominate this one. I get my ass kicked by that one though. And so that's something that this speaks, again, I'm going to talk about your fight is your mental headspace right now is going to be your biggest change. Again, you're not looking at your opponent here. You walked in with better technique and got hit because you pre-wrote they should throw this flat snap. So I'm going to overblock, which by the way, you way overblocked that. Also, one of the things that is now becoming obvious is that both your tools work on the same pattern. You are not independently working with your hands yet. This, again, is going to be an experimentation thing that you have to get yourself into a headspace to do it because it's going to cause a lot of failures. Right now, you can see in your entire fight, both tools go to the same zone. So you're not blocking one zone and blocking another and then offensively responding. You are all tools block here, which means unless they actually go there, you're at 100% fail rate, which is the reason why you got smoked in the leg. And I'm actually kind of shocked you didn't get hit in the cup there. So one of the things that this is speaking to is you need to, again, slow your fight down. You need to also start actually actively thinking about how little can I block? Like, how little do I need to actually move my shield to address this defensively so I can leave myself all the extra motion? You have a lot of wasted motion in your fight right now, and you have a lot of wasted energy, and like, I'm going to 100% address this, and then I'm going to have to bring myself back home before I can actually make the next response. Versus, I can flick my shield right here, and that addresses everything, and this one is now free to make an action. And so this goes into timing of the fight. Right now you have no control of timing. Again, it goes back into the rote thing. Your timing is all accidental. And so I realized I just threw a huge amount of words at you. Do you actually have any questions about that I just like?
No, I mean, I totally understand everything you're saying. It definitely makes sense watching the video and hearing it. So yeah.
Okay.
Right.
When you slow your fight down, you're going to start smoking people for the easy stuff. You should have like flat snapped I almost had expletives fall out of my face there. You should have flat snapped him at the edge of measure. You had a free one-off, but because you're not seeing him, there is so much you can't take advantage of yet. I'm really excited to see what your fight turns into after about a year of you taking time to look at your opponent, because you're probably going to start nuking people. You have very fast hands naturally, which has allowed you to get away with a lot of crap.
All right, Thorfinn.
Okay. Hey, good to see you back. I think that really the reason you're getting legged here is it's kind of a standard failure in your style of shield. Like you literally like dropped that, and as you came in, and he should not have been able to leg you. If you had, what I'm talking about is it's a fundamental failure in your skill set. Is trust in your defense, right? And what you did was you address things like Helga said that weren't there, right? So instead, you should come in and let the fight happen organically in front of you. This is a very difficult thing to achieve, and so what I want you to do is like don't beat yourself up that you haven't done that yet, and we're all working on it. And what I mean by that is that you want to build your set of skills up to where you can trust yourself to walk into that space, and so there you go. And then the other one was while you're learning to do this, like Helga said, be okay with the failures, right? As you're practicing, you're learning to be, my stance is here. I approach like this, and the failures that happen, they're going to happen organically until you learn to address them, right? So that's okay. So be okay with the idea that you want to come into this fight like, I don't have a plan. The guy's not going to do what I want him to do, right? As soon as you have a plan, you're already failing, because what if he doesn't do that, right? Instead, you should walk in, my guard is here, my attack's here, and then address the fight from that, versus deciding what's going to happen before it happens. And so no plans in your fight. And then the fight will, it's like jazz, man. We're going to talk about our fight is going to happen between the two of us, and we're going to have a dialogue, right? But if you go in with the idea that it's already going to be like that, it's never going to be like that. And so instead, work on your like solid shield stance and your approach to the fight, okay? But I was like, be okay with the idea that while we're learning this, you're going to have failures.
Yeah.
Lots.
Sure.
But that doesn't mean you shouldn't be working on those fundamentals.
Yeah.
Okay. That was my.
All right, Doctor.
Yeah, just back to I'm glad that Helga pointed out victory conditions. I live by victory conditions. And not going into the fight with as much of a plan as being the observer. Walk in. I have the benefit of not being in that fight, but I'm walking into that fight, and the first thing I saw was, oh, that guy's gonna step, and I thought you were gonna step back and hit him in the leg. Just watching his body mechanics. So that same effort or explosion that you try and put in your hands, that can live in your feet too. And it's more effortless. And really my goal as a fighter is to best my opponent with the least amount of effort. No muscle, all technique, perfect shot. And then, okay, got to add a little muscle, got to add a little bit of this, but trying to just strip it down and listen to them and allow them to tell you how they want to be bested, how they want to be killed, what they're willing to bite on. I go out there, my sole purpose is to lie to my opponent. So go out there with that thought. What are they looking at? As well as seeing what you're seeing from them, what do they see from you? How do they react, like we were talking about earlier, when you're walking into that B range? Do they get excited? Do they start to get nervous? Does their tension in their hands and feet change? All of those little things you can pick up on if you're not so worried about throwing this perfect combo that you've already pre-programmed.
Yeah.
So being that observer and eating some shots or not being able to throw what you want to throw or kill people every time, it's you gain so much more. So yeah, a failure is an absolute must in that regard.
Go ahead, Helga.
I just want to dogpile on with Octa real quick, because he hit one of the coolest points where you're going to be able to change your fight. And where Octa talked about how their tension in their body and everything else like that. I'm going to go one stage back. It's the starting stage of looking at your opponent. Look at their shield and their weapon. Actually, you can tell where a person mainly blocks. You can tell where they like to hit on the stick. All of us are terrible about retaping our gear, and so they give you like free cheat codes, and that will then develop backwards. You will then by IDing where that abuse is on their gear, you can see the holes in what they're doing, or where they're good at blocking things. You want to know where a shield's beat up? Where they're really good at blocking. Where it's not, that's what they miss. And so I just wanted to like dogpile on with Octa and be like, yes, this. But start simple. Look at their tools, then backwards. How do they hold their hand? Is there tension in their body? Then down to their feet. So stack on these skills. Don't automatically expect you can do it magically walking in. It is a very, very trained skill to look at your opponent. So start where your eye wants to follow.
Yeah. So what we're seeing here, Primus, is a lot of this is all headspace stuff. This is all the mental part of the fight. Like I said, your basic foundational mechanics are pretty solid. So one of the things that I'm seeing in this is when you first approach this particular fighter, especially the first one with the cutout shield there, you are a clearly superior fighter. The problem is, you know that, and it reads in your body language. You came out in this fight assuming that you were just going to win this fight, which you should, because your skill set is in fact better than that person's skill set. But anytime that comes into your headspace, that because basically what it did is it made you lazy. You had an assumption that you were going to win this fight, and that's, again, that there is a good a good foundation for or a good case to be made that you should have won that fight. You're a better fighter, but you having that thought go through your mind, that made you lazy. And you could just see it in the blows that you were throwing. You can see it in the ways that you were blocking. It's kind of one of those things where part of the reason why you ended up blocking as high as it was, you were kind of starting to throw an offside. And as you started into that shot, like Octa was saying earlier, your face kind of comes in, and there's this kind of wave that happens as opposed to just execution.
Yeah.
And so everything just came up. You didn't get hit in the leg because your opponent saw a target and executed a target. He was going to throw that no matter what.
Yeah. Right.
You just happen to have a motion that you executed that led to that. But it's, that's one of those things we often talk about the difference between, when you win a fight, you have to ask that question. And, did you win that fight, or did your opponent lose that fight?
Yeah.
Right. You didn't get hit in the legs because you got beaten by a superior opponent. As they said in Top Gun, that was some of the best fighting I ever saw, right up to the point where you got hit in the leg. You got hit in the leg because you were being lazy.
Yeah.
Because you were trying to go for something, and you're just like, let me just be done with this guy and just to kind of move on through this bear pit. So yeah, that's a mindset, that's an approach. And I think to pile on what Thorfinn was saying specifically about that, organic. You have to let the fight develop organically and naturally. One of the most dangerous opponents we find on the field is the guy who doesn't know what he's doing. He's got just enough mechanics to be able to throw a killing blow, and you make a motion, they freak out, they throw a blow, and you get hit, right? It happens all the time. It is those are some of the most dangerous opponents we face, because they don't know what they're doing, but you get hit with a stick, you fall down, right? That's the game we play, right? And I'll tell you, for where you're at as mid-level unbelted fighter, this is a very common phenomenon. You are finding your comfort. You are finding who you are as a fighter. You are getting a good sense of where you are on the fighting spectrum, the fighters you should be beating, the fighters you should not be beating. trying to make your way in the world, right? And it's a hard place to be as an unbelted fighter, because we want to do well, right? And the most tangible measure we have of doing well is body count, and that's typically the only way that we can measure our progress. But body count is a convenient byproduct of progress, not the other way around, right? Progress is not body count is not an indicator of progress. It's like, oh, look, I'm doing well because I'm killing people. It's like, no, I'm becoming a better fighter, and look, that guy fell over. And that's where it gets back to victory conditions, like Helga was saying. And I think, you do have a lot of really, really great foundation. Some good stick mechanics. It can always be better, obviously, but there's so much good to work with there. The physical part is pretty much in place, or you have enough of the physical parts of your fight that you can definitely take the time to focus on the mental parts. And if you get all of these mental parts down, establishing range, getting a right headset or right mindset for who you're fighting and how you're facing them, those sort of things. All of the targets that you need are going to present themselves. They kind of have to, right? If you're in a good mental space to be able to see targets as they present themselves without going after a particular target and without trying to make something happen, right? It's a lot easier to make somebody do what they want to do than to get them to do what you want them to do.
Yeah.
Fighters want to do certain things. We all have these tendencies that we want to do. So let them do what they want to do, and then make them punish them for it, basically. But get your mindset and find that vision of the fight, to be able to see these things clearly and accurately. And I think that's kind of the common theme in all of what we're seeing here is what you're seeing happening in the fight. Because when you see the fight happen better, you have the physical tools to capitalize on recognizing those mental cues. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Right. So anybody else have anything on that? I know I kind of got long-winded on that, but that was kind of a recap. Helga?
I don't have anything on that, but I did, while everybody was talking, source through his videos, and I did find some with some actual mechanical failures, if we want to go over, because we've harped on you about headspace and everything else like that. But I did find a video with a very interesting thing going on in it. I'm going to assume that, one, you're normally taller than most of your opponents, and you're very used to being strong. And I'm watching you fight somebody where you do not have either of those tools, and your mechanics go to dog shit.
Let's watch that.
Oh, look at the time. Gotta go.
No, we started late. We got a few minutes.
Let me screen share this.
Failures are good, man. Failures are good.
And it's an interesting thing because you're fighting a greatsword here. And I want to see if everybody else sees what I'm seeing, because it's fascinating. It's also, you have enough skill that I'm betting you're not getting called out on what you're doing here.
That was flat.
Yep.
Back that up.
Yep. I'm going to slow that down too.
So the first head wrap was thrown reasonably well, but it was blocked, and then the body shot was flat.
Caught between a wrap and a snap. It couldn't make up its mind.
Right. Yep.
And that headshot.
Well, yeah, back up the
feet were-
headshot too, because there's some mechanics. There's some mechanics going on that head wrap.
The feet left the ground before the shot developed.
Yep.
So there was no gravity foot to anchor that blow with, and not enough technique to throw it hard.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And what I'm actually gonna go after here is the start of this fight. In the start of this fight, this is the first time I've seen you completely upright and now leading with your head. You are weeble wobbling in and out of this fight to try to create range, and you can see it actually as you start facing away from the camera. You lean both your tools forward, your head comes with you, putting your shoulders over your hips, and now you're chasing your feet. And this is the reason why you fall right into that fight, and you can actually watch you lose elevation with each step because your head is continuing to lead your hips.
I think
and
that
you
leg
cannot
that leg
recover.
wrap was flat too.
And it's killing all of your mechanics in this. And now we're going back to a much closer fight to what the first videos that we watched of you that are almost 6 months old compared to this one. Of where we're now seeing you falling in and out of the fight. Your legs are actually locking in between motions, and you can now not control range at all. So all that like calm demeanor is now lost because you are now falling in and out. So you're having to recover your own upper body to get this fight to continue.
And you squared up at the end there too.
Yeah.
If you'd have kept a more of a bladed stance, the wrap would have been easy to throw.
Yeah.
And there'd be less target area.
Anybody else want me to reverse back to it at all?
Did you do he did like a sidestep though at the end to get that body shot in, right?
This one. Hey, you found the hotkeys.
He jumped with the headshot, landed, and then threw the wrap.
Hold on, he's gonna do a adjust right there, like like a stutter step, which allowed him to get that body.
Yeah.
Come in, bang, block. He's gonna throw the wrap there, and then boom, there it is.
Yeah, I think he ended up doing that starter step because he jumped up to get to the wrap, and that kind of threw him off to the side.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying the stutter step is a wrong thing to do right there.
I agree. I just think Primus, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think that was intentional.
Honestly, I don't remember. Yeah.
That looked incidental.
It would have been more powerful as like a gathering step, gather step.
Right.
Gather, throw the wrap, step, throw the wrap.
Yeah.
Right.
So I just wanted to bring this video up because we've been talking about headspace and really haven't kind of gone after your mechanics in this process. And this fight is actually a really good show of where your mechanics are breaking down and when they're breaking down. This dude's just as tall as you are.
Yeah.
And is presenting just as much strength in the fight, and all of a sudden now you're doing that like newcomer rise up to try to like make yourself bigger. And it's stealing all your power. Had you actually settled into your stance, you would have controlled this fight so much better and been able to manipulate range. But because you're upright and now leading with your head in and out of the fight, as soon as you pick a direction, you're going that way because your head weighs 8 pounds, your helmet weighs another 12 pounds. You don't actually have enough back strength to keep to not just whiplash yourself trying to recover. So now your feet are going to scramble to do this. And we see it through the entire fight, even after you leg him, is you still lean in with the head to create range and to get into that range. You're giving him a free one-off. And so this is something that I would especially look for when you are getting tired or you feel threatened.
Okay.
Well, all right, Octa, go ahead, and then we'll kind of wrap up with some final thoughts for Primus.
So, and just to speak to that posture that Helga was talking about, when you get all the way up because you've perceived this need to be bigger, you can't go up anymore. Your technique has no ability to change elevation except to go down. And for me as your opponent, that's a huge tell. If my opponent's all the way up, sweet, they have to go down. So be aware of that. When you move from your center, your core, your dantian, it's about a fist below your belly button.
Mm-hmm.
Even I move, depending on the technique, about a fist below that is where my center moves from. So if you sink into that and you move from that center, and the only time you deviate from that is when you're being deliberate, because you're deliberately going to adjust that. But that's another one of those victory conditions, right?
Yeah.
Go to a fight practice, and when you find yourself not moving from your center, or better yet, you have somebody watching and they can just yell, boom, you're dead, you lost the fight, reset, start over again. Same thing with the shield in the eyes. If somebody can count 2 seconds, you're dead if they can't see your eyes. So just little victory conditions like that to help tweak that.
All right, Octa, while you're at it, you want to give them your top 3 things to work on?
So the shield mechanic, I mean, I can't stress it enough. I've seen so many people that I've worked with. I'm like, look, as soon as you can stop hiding your eyes, the road gets really clear. You can be an observer. Now there's nothing better, or rather nothing worse than hitting somebody and not being able to see the blow land. I love to be in a fight where I'm watching the whole thing and you don't even look at your sword because you want to see the expression on their face when you wrap their thigh around your sword, right?
Yeah.
We're all trying to be nice guys, but there's nothing better than the sound of the thigh slapping on the backside of your sword as it wraps around, right? You want to
And
see
looking somebody
Yeah.
right in the eye when you do
When
it.
you do it.
that's
Yeah.
right. Or better yet, the back of their head when you're
Yeah.
hitting them there because they just juked them out of their socks, right? So get that shield into an edge-on, comfortable position. Helga brought up independent. This has a brain and this has a brain, and they talk to each other, but they aren't one motion. They need to be a bit independent. They need to be able to not be so codependent on one another. And then other than the posture stuff that we talked about, my only other thing is find that rhythm, whatever music is in your head when you're wanting to kill somebody. And it doesn't have to be outwardly all the time. You
Yeah.
can be the duck, right? You're calm on top, but inside your feet have tension. You're ready to go. And it's that tension and that ability to explode at the proper times, not preconceived times, that really makes a three-dimensional fighter, makes it, along with all the other mental stuff. Rambling.
All right, Thorfinn.
Okay, so first I would say that I would try and work on having this idea of no plans, right? Do not go in with plans because, again, if they do not accommodate your plans, you're in the weeds, right? Trying to catch up with your opponent, right? And so instead, what you should focus on is having solid shield work and footwork and sword work that allows you to address whatever they bring to the table. Okay, so that way the fight can happen right now, the two of you, this time, not the last time you fought them, right? And then remember that as you're going to transition through these zones, like you like to be like 3 and explode into 1, is that you have to be comfortable being able to threaten your opponent in every zone and fight and defend yourself in every zone.
Okay.
So as if things go sideways and you need to get out, which I am a very strong proponent of, if I'm not controlling my tempo and range and how I feel the initiative of the fight is going, I'll bounce out, right? But how I bounce out, am I going to go left, right, or just straight back? You don't want to, you want to be able to roll out. And so when we were talking about doing these fights in those smaller spaces earlier, the idea that you can roll out to any direction and be able to defend yourself at the same time, enormous, right? So try and be okay with the idea that how you transition in and out of the fight is really going to be fundamental to your success. Again, be okay with your failures, and well, that's about it. Okay.
There you go. All right, Helga.
All right, so I'm going to agree with the addressing your failures in your headspace. That's already been said. We've beaten that horse to death. So there's number 1. Victory conditions. Start setting them. Start playing with them.
Okay.
The second one is I agree with everybody about the start addressing the idea you need to have a plan. Get rid of that. So this is going to be where I'm just going to put this in my words. You need to stop worrying about being successful and start playing more. Literally, we learn through play. When we are seeking success, we put ourselves where we must be perfect or it's shit. You need to go back to making like sandcastles in the sandbox about fighting and just have a riot of a time and don't care. Like, just rock and roll and have fun. And everybody and their brother is going to try to come up to you and be like, oh man, if you had changed this, you'd be like, I am playing with a concept. I need data points. Like, once we're done with this, I would love to get your feedback, but I'm playing with the concept. Actually set your boundaries with some of your people and your trainers and go with that and have these discussions with them. It will exponentially increase how you are learning in the fight. Okay. So my third one, and I'm very sorry, I don't have a nicer way to put this. You need to address your ego versus your humility within the fight because you have a problem. And it's very obvious because when you're fighting lower caliber fighters, you're trying to overwhelm them and overrun them. When you're fighting higher calibration fighters, you are trying to run to them and then like meet them on that. So you yourself do not understand who you are as a fighter yet, and that is fucking with your headspace. That is making all of these other problems come to the light of you're trying to force things, you're trying to pre-program, you're not willing to play, and everything else like that. This is an ego versus humility problem. And right now, you should be humble as fuck and have fun, because then you get to have an ego later about what you're doing. And I think that if you attack it like that, without becoming self-abusive, because ruthless self-assessment is not about becoming abusive to get the job done. If you actually look at how you can be humble in the fight and humble to your opponent, you're going to find that you are accidentally successful so much more often because you start seeing them standing in front of you.
Okay.
Yeah. So the one like tangible thing I can tell you to do for focusing on some of this stuff is focus on establishing range. And that is going to go along with a lot of these other things that that we're talking about. But really, it's what Helga was just saying. And I mean, in its entirety, reestablishing your victory conditions, being okay with a certain measure of failure, is what is going to get you over the ego. And you know, some of what she was talking about with the play is something I also describe that as a period of discovery. It's just the what if. What happens when I do this? Oh, that's an interesting response. What happens when I put my foot here? Okay, that's interesting. Just really just play with the what if. Play with, you know, what happens when I do this and what happens when I do this. And when you understand that you're playing with it, you know, I mean, what's the worst thing that happens? Like you get hit with a stick, right? I suppose at this point you've been hit with a stick already, so
a few times.
So we should be used to that concept, right? And you need to kind of indulge in that what if. You need to some degree, especially being a mid-range unbelted fighter, when you are fighting other lower level unbelted fighters, that is where you need to indulge in the failures. You need to create an environment with those lower level fighters where you are setting yourself up for failure to some extent, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
For the purpose of, you know, this is somebody, if I'm clearly better than this guy, then I have the luxury of working on this thing that I'm not good at.
Okay.
Right. Meanwhile, lower level unbelted fighter at practice gets to say, hey, did you see what I did to Primus the other day? Which is going to be a very different thing when he faces you in a tournament. And then you get to actually execute, and then you find out where everything is.
Yeah.
But you have the luxury of being able to play with some of this stuff and say, what happens if I do this? What happens if I do this? Because who cares if I mean, Finn has been fighting for, you know, for less than a year, and Thorwald's been fighting for less than 6 months. You go out and fight one of those guys and they hit you in the head, good for them.
Yeah.
Right? And meanwhile, you are getting better at something you need to get better at. And unfortunately, we get better at the things by failing at them.
Yeah.
Does it make sense?
Yep.
Because with what you get from that what if is data points, like Helga said. It's like, okay, that didn't work. That didn't work. There's something to this. Let's try that again. Okay, that does work. And you get that through that discovery and that what if and the just playtime.
Yeah.
You know, and you have enough tools, you have enough skill set. You know, some of the stuff we were looking at with your mechanics can definitely use some improvement, but you got a lot of good stuff to work with right there. So you have the luxury of being able to play a little bit. And if anybody gives you any shit about it, just tell them you're playing with stuff.
Okay.
And that's fine. So anyway, we ran a little bit over, but we started a bit late. So I'm going to wrap up. I definitely want to thank all the coaches as always. Helga, thank you. I love watching you work. Really, really love watching you do this. You always come up with something that is like, that I just don't see. I love the way you see see this stuff. Octa, Thorfinn, as always, thank you for your expertise. You guys are great. And Finnan, Thorvald, Primus, thank you for being willing to subject yourself to the torture. When we put this up recently, we ended up with 8 different people that had said they were interested. So we decided to run through those over the next 4 months. So we're doing, this will be once a month. We'll have a couple of our other coaches joining us for some of the other episodes, but we have, I'm not sure who we have on deck for next month, but a couple more of the unbelted fighters throughout that had submitted their input. It's been a great time. Thank you for everyone for joining in. And this week, Friday coming up, we have Thorfinn. What's the show for Friday?
We're going to be doing a show discussing kind of setting goals for the new year with the idea that eventually the SCA will become active again. But like realistic goals, kind of planning, drills you can do, and also things like, say, for instance, going out and fixing your gear and things like that, little things like that to try and get us all moving towards being a healthy, ability to prepare for actual real time again. So like New Year's goals.
Yep, good stuff. All right, Helga, you got any final words?
I just wanted to say thank you so much for the unbelts that have submitted videos. You are on a much larger scale than you're used to when getting feedback. And this, I'm just actually going to point out, this is an act of courage and bravery to be willing to take feedback in time like this when you don't know what's going to happen, and basically to the known world. So I am super grateful for those that have allowed us to breakdown videos, and those that will be allowing, you can check out now. You still have a free e-ticket ride to be like, nope, fuck you all. So just so you know. And then I want to thank all the knights that are joining us for this. Knowledge is power, and I am learning as much as I am talking, and so I just wanted to say thank you all very, very much. And I hope to continue doing this in the future with you. I'm having a blast.
Yeah. All right. Octa, final words?
Just thanks to everybody. What a great venue to be able to work with everybody with different experiences and different levels, and all doing the thing that we love, this church, as I call it. So
yeah, church
it means a lot. It's worth every effort you put into it. You get back out of it. So love all you guys and appreciate it.
Right on. Thorfinn?
I'd like to see some videos from Knights as well. We're not here just to, we're here to analyze anyone's fighting, and help out in any way we can. And so again, thank you guys for putting yourselves in the crucible here and letting us look at your videos. But if anybody has videos, I would love to help in any way I can.
Yeah, all of us are available on the SCA Coaches Corner Facebook group. And we love this. We love sitting down with anybody. So if you want us to look at your video, you're more than welcome to. For this first bit of the series, we are doing unbelted fighters only, and we'll get through the first little bunch here, and then we'll see who else is out there. Maybe get some others in there. So thanks again to everybody for joining us, and we'll see you Friday night for a new episode. So everybody have a good night.